Like a bridal stylist is ideally, think of think of them as your fashion savvy BFF. A bridal stylist kind of helps the person, like they help the bride and the groom, not just to create their outfits, but their outfits that will tie up with what the decor looks like, with what the color story of the flowers is going to be, with how the imagery is going to be taken by the photographer, and how this entire story comes to life through the narrative of visual storytelling.
So how do you go about helping like grooms understand the value of this?
That's a really interesting question. I know. Drape. And when he wore that, he's like, oh my God. And it has swans. He's like, that is like my Chinese culture one on one. So it was such an interesting mix of like picking up that drape of his culture and that entire detail. And but he still was wearing a sherwani at the end of the day, but complemented the bride really well. Yeah.
Does having like a stylist mean that they would like spend more, or spend less in the long run?
When brides are buying their outfits, a lot of times, in fact, I would put that number more at a more than 50% brides don't end up wearing their outfits again. It's not just about the money. For me, I also feel that Indian handicraft is so amazing, and we come from such a rich culture, and we are also we are very lucky to have hand embroideries so readily available to us, that we, I guess, like we somewhere we forget along the way that it is craft, and it is something that should be passed on. It's not something that should just stay in your closet and oh, I couldn't wear it again because it was too heavy. Well, then maybe that was not your personality. Like, you bought it because you thought it would look nice, but then eventually um, you could not relate to it anymore.
Imagine the fun you'll have at your wedding, one of life's most treasured moments. In each episode, hear from leading wedding professionals as they share with you insider tips and personal advice for a magical wedding. Welcome to the Indian Wedding Podcast. Here to help plan your wedding with style and grace are your hosts, Kunal and Jinal Sampat.
Hi friends, welcome to another episode of the Indian Wedding Podcast. I'm your host, Kunal Sampat, along with my co-host, Janelle Sampat, where our job is to help you plan a magical wedding. Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes when you see a picture-perfect, beautifully styled wedding? If so, you're going to love this interview because you'll be meeting with a stylist who has years of education and experience styling for events, including weddings. Our guest today is Tina Bhardwaj, a certified fashion designer, wardrobe stylist, and co-owner of womenswear label MadSam TinZin. Tina is a personal styling expert for people who want to look and feel great and in the clothes they put on. She helps men and women style in an effortless way that represents them at their core and not a style that they came across on Pinterest. In this interview, we cover a wide range of topics, including why you should hire a stylist at your wedding, common mistakes couples make when it comes to styling, does hiring a stylist increase your wedding expenses, and more. Stay tuned towards the end of the interview where Tina shares with us her favorite designers. You can also check out links and timestamps in the descriptions below for specific topics and insights. Please join me in welcoming Tina Bhardwaj on the Indian Wedding Podcast. Tina, welcome to the Indian Wedding Podcast. I'm really excited to have you on the show along with Janelle, and we can't wait to talk about your world in as a stylist.
I'm very excited to be here, guys. Thank you so much for having me. And I am super excited about relaying all the information and just talking one on one with you guys about bridal styling.
I know we have a set of questions, we want to go through, but I am really curious about all the pins that Tina has on her jacket. So maybe that might be a good place to start about what do those each of those pins
I
stand
love
for,
that. Yeah.
and what's maybe you could tell us a little bit more.
And these are actually all throughout the years. So one is from Disneyland, one is from one of my friends who had started a brand in 2013, and he made one. And so I have one of those from him. And then basically all along the way. That I have one from LinkedIn too, which is kind of funny because like now my husband's with LinkedIn, so I guess like this is just over the years.
Yeah, it's cool. That's great. Can you tell us like an overview of what like a wedding stylist does, and why hiring a wedding stylist is so important for your wedding day?
Right. So a wedding stylist, I guess like the easiest way, every time I think about it, the easiest way, um, or the easiest thing that I can remember is how one of my clients actually put it. She told me that when I hired Tina, I did not know that I would get an aesthetic designer, a creative person, and a fairy godmother all in one. So I guess like like a bridal stylist is ideally, think of think of them as your fashion savvy BFF who happens to be educated in fashion, also has knowledge, of aesthetics, and has an
Mhm.
impeccable eye for detail. And basically, they're like your trusted friend that will take you through all of the design decisions that you have to be taking throughout the wedding planning process. So that's what the job of a bridal stylist is.
That's great. So do you take clients that are just the brides or just the grooms, or what are like the most popular setups you usually work with?
So ideally, when you look at a bridal stylist, the ultimate goal of a stylist is to create the visual of the whole wedding, um, in a way that is all tied up together. So think of all different elements like, there you hire a wedding planner to do your decor, you hire a florist, or the wedding planner has a florist to do all the flowers. Then generally bride and groom these days pick a theme. Then there is the clothes that they do. Then they hire a photographer. Now, while these are all independently working and the bride and the groom are ideally the pivot for all of these jobs, a bridal stylist kind of helps the person, like they help the bride and the groom not just to create their outfits, but their outfits that will tie up with what the decor looks like, with what the color story of the flowers is going to be, with how the imagery is going to be taken by the photographer, and how this entire story comes to life through the narrative of visual storytelling. So for a lot of people, I know that this is a very common misconception that um, a bridal stylist is only meant for your clothes and your jewelry, but your clothes and your jewelry, especially at a wedding, are not independent of all of these factors. They all go hand in hand. So you cannot have an outfit that just looks nice but it's completely offsetting with the colors of the flower at your wedding, or also does not talk or enhance the theme that you've probably set for your guests, or even that you have the right clothes, but the way the pictures are taken and the photography is done, it doesn't really tell any kind of story with your clothes. So clothes are the one thing that actually get tied up with all of these different factors. So like how you would hire a wedding planner, and why it is important to have a wedding planner and a photographer and a videographer, it's the same way a bridal stylist also fills that entire gap which actually ties all of these elements together.
That makes sense. So how do you go about like helping like grooms understand the value of this? Because they
So
what are like some of the challenges you face when talking to them?
For
that's a really interesting question. I know, and I've had this a couple of times. That, oh, my husband already knows what he wants to wear. But like I said, if he knows what he wants to wear, which could be the simplest of tux, but the idea is that how is that tux complementing the outfit that you're wearing? Your images are always going to be taken together. So what is the direction for that? How is uh, the outfits that both of you are wearing, how does that enhance your personality and also kind of talk about you guys in a setting of that decor or even in the venue that you are at? So a lot of grooms like feel that, oh, it's just you can do the bride, but ideally the storytelling cannot come alive without the groom because he happens to share the space with the bride. so uh, so I guess that's really important. And a lot of times the best way to deal with this is let the women take the decisions.
Mm.
Which
That's good.
well, because they obviously, women decide what they really want first, and then we work around the groom to kind of figure out what would complement the bride but also include his sensibilities. So um they might say, grooms might say that they're like, oh, that's fine, like it's okay, whatever you want to do. But I know most of the grooms that I've worked with have their own sense of personality, which obviously everybody has this individuality. And I guess just to understand
Mm.
that, and understand that how you can fit that personality trait into the outfits they're wearing. Like if somebody wants to be really comfortable, then you choose like a fabric which is maybe a stretch pants, or even if you're putting him in like a solid Indian wear, but you're still including elements that kind of cater to his personality and his needs, so that when he's at the wedding event, he feels like himself and he feels like enjoying the festivities and being a part of it rather than just being so overwhelmed by the clothes that he's wearing. So I guess they all buy into it eventually. When they see themselves looking good and feeling good, then they eventually get on board with it.
Right. So, does that help? I
Yeah,
wish
I
you
think
had a
this is good.
stylist. I
Yeah,
wish
I mean,
we
if
had
you
a
look
stylist.
if you look at our call even today, like you and Janelle are dressed up really nicely, and I'm in this t-shirt that's
Yeah.
like 10 years old or longer, and I
You
could care
might even
less.
have shorts underneath.
Yeah.
Well, not today, but
Yeah.
yes.
So, so
Yeah, which
timeline
I
wise,
which
Tina,
I
yeah.
think honestly it is important to also accommodate that. Like for me, it's also important that because a lot of grooms, like I recently did this wedding where where the girl is Indian, but the guy that she was getting married to is Chinese. And initially he wanted to do a tux, but when she wore the lehenga and he came, and obviously everybody's fascinated by the Indian culture, the Indian clothes. And then I had him try this sherwani, which had a really interesting panel cut, and it had a bit of a drape. And when he wore that, he's like, oh my god, and it has swans. He's like, that is like my Chinese culture one on one. So it was such an interesting mix of like um picking up that drape of his culture and that entire detail. And
Hmm.
but he still was wearing a sherwani at the end of the day, but complemented the bride really well. So he
Yeah.
switched within like that one
That's
time that
really
he came
cool.
and he tried that outfit, and he's like, I think I want to wear this, I'm good with Indian
Yeah.
clothes. So
Yeah, this is like perfect way of like someone else looking at you with like a fresh pair of
yeah,
eyes and
yeah.
you not realizing that this is you, but someone else can tell that, that happens a lot with design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so to say it happens like that is because like everybody is trained in a certain way. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, when your car dies down, you send it to a mechanic. When you're not feeling well, you give your entire body to a doctor to operate on. Um, because every professional has their they've actually been trained in that, so that's
Yeah.
what they see, and that's how their eyes are trained. Now if you
Yeah.
trust your car to a mechanic, you would not be like, oh, I want to do all of this myself, because that person's specifically trained for it. And that is exactly how a design professional is trained, because they understand the aesthetics and the elements and all of the detailings, the fabrics, the fit, the style, everything. So I guess like just leave it to the professionals.
Right. That's great. So for timeline wise, when is the right time for like a couple to hire a stylist? Like, is it like when they hire a planner or doing the decor, like after or before? What do you think is like a good way to do it so that they can avoid some mistakes?
Right. I have actually worked with people both ways. So sometimes people hire me before they hire the planner. Um, but most of the times they hire a planner first, and then immediately after the planner, you basically hire the bridal stylist, because then literally these are the two people that will go hand in hand to building the entire aesthetics together.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got it. So
Yep,
they can
that
do it
makes
either
sense.
way.
Yeah, and I would like Mostly people start like a year prior, especially to hire a hire a wedding planner. And so look at the bridal stylist being hired 8 months before the wedding. That's an ideal time frame
Okay.
for them to create a mood, and also to tie all the elements together, because it's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah, and
walk us
also,
through?
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Janelle.
And also there are many events I was saying, so you have to
Right,
like keep in mind like
right.
what's going on in each event. Indian weddings never end with one event, so
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. 3 are like the
Yeah.
bare minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Kunal.
Can you
Got
walk
it.
us through? Can you walk us through the exact process and what brides can expect when working with a stylist like yourself?
Mhm. So the process, I'll get to that first. I think it is, once you get on board with a bridal stylist, we first have a meeting with the bride and the groom, whether physically or virtually, depends where they are, where I understand a little bit about their personality, how they met, what's their love story. I understand a little bit about their characters and their personalities, which helps me then answer a couple of questions um, about what they would prefer, and how I think that the style or the aesthetics would be able to translate into their personalities and what they would like. So I create, post that meeting, I create a mood board of what I feel um, they would like, and that is just a framework of what we are thinking. So by that time, if they've already hired a wedding planner, then they have a little bit of theme or some idea of like what they want to do. Or we start with the venue, and we try and create moods for different events that they have. Mostly when I work with brides, I work on all the events that they're doing for the wedding. And so from there, after that, I meet the bride and groom personally, and that is when I have them try a couple of outfits to see their body type. So first I understood their personalities, their mood, all of that, and then I understand as what is their body type, what kind of colors work for them, what kind of silhouettes would look like nice on them, and what they consider to be heavy enough or really light, or so on and so forth. So just to kind of place them on how, what they would like and how they want to be placed in terms of how heavy or light their bridal wear is going to look. And after I have that trial session with them, I take their measurements and I understand what styles work for them. And after that, I create a proper mood board for each event. So, and generally, I give two options of mood boards. So, the wedding would look a certain way. What is the theme of the wedding? What are the colors that we are going to be using? And in this presentation, like a PDF, I would combine everything. So it would be, what colors are the flowers going to be at your wedding, and what is the theme, like if you're doing, say, like a Moroccan theme,
Wow.
then
Hmm.
how are we going about that theme in terms of decor, in terms of flower. And this is the options of outfits that we can do, um, which is just creating a mood for all the three events that we're doing.
Hmm.
Post they finalize what direction and what mood we're going to go in, that's when I get into the outfits. So depending on that mood, now we have the theme, we have the mood. I know what styles look good on them. I
Hmm.
know what they prefer. I know how heavy they want. I know what necklines look good on them, what lengths look good on them. Then I suggest, based on off of all of that, I suggest the different designers and the different outfits that they can get. So I send them like
Hmm.
option of say 20, 25 options, and also depending on how much
Oh,
they want
wow.
to spend.
Spend, yeah.
Right. So depending on their budget and everything, I send them options of what all they can do. Um, and then they pick a
Hmm.
direction. And once they decide what they want to do, accordingly, I will also make changes in that outfit if it needs to be. Say, if I want to change the neckline of the outfit, or if I want to change the sleeve length, or if I want to change the print of the outfit, or I want to change the color of the outfit depending on the theme. All of that is worked around post this the outfit. After the outfit is selected, I coordinate with the designers. I send them the measurements. I send the orders in. That process starts. Once that process starts, then I start working on the accessories. So what kind of jewelry are we going to do, which obviously there is a direction. Once we do pick the outfits, there's already a direction of what accessories we're going to do, because we already have a look that we're trying to create.
Right.
So and then I give them, in that niche, I give them options of what all accessories they can buy depending on their budget, depending on
Hmm.
preferences.
Yeah.
And then they pick one, I buy all of that for them. Then finally it's the time for shoes, other tiny accessories, little bit of detailings if we need anything else, especially for men. Like I love to do classic watches for them, sometimes brooches. So all of those details get tied up. And the men's shoes are really, really important because that's their one important accessory. So that I
That's
basically
good.
shop for all of that. And then by the time everything comes back, the outfit is here, the accessories are here, we have a trial session where they both try everything. And we make sure if there are any alterations needed, everything looks good, all good. Post that, I create a mood board of the hair, the makeup, and also the style of imagery that we're going to be looking at when the pictures are being taken for that event. So more often than not, and then my collaboration with the photographer starts, which is when I basically talk to them and the videographer, and we figure out what all locations can we use at the venue to click some really good images for them, wherein it, like, a lot of times it's really important to just get the two of them and then also make sure how, like, their family is being photographed. So yeah, so and then I collaborate with the photographer to figure out that direction, send them reference images, send them reference videos,
Oh wow.
take their
There's a
inputs.
lot.
It's
There's
a
a
Yeah.
lot.
lot oh my God. Do you ever get pushback from like the makeup artist or the photographer? Like usual, like we know what we're doing. We don't need guidance here. Do you ever get that or?
I honestly, that is that I know that that sounds like it happens a lot, and I'm sure, like, I mean, there's always that little bit of thing, but because I've been in the industry for so long, and I've run my own business, I have traveled so much, I've met so many different people, that for me now it's like, there are a lot of times that I go with a certain image. Like I worked with this bride and groom for their 10-year anniversary, and I had the hair that I wanted to do, but while he was doing that hair, the hair artist, he stumbled upon this other thing and he's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "It kind of looks cool." And then he's like, "What do you think?" "I think it looks really nice. Do you think we can go with it?" And I was like, "Okay, let's do it." So, it can happen.
Yeah.
Um, and I love, because I also realize that when I'm working with all of these people, they're also creative minds.
Right.
Um, so,
Exactly. That's what I
so
would think.
at the end of the day, the intent is to create a certain look for the bride and groom that just stands apart and that also is very personal to them.
Yeah.
And it kind of just aesthetically comes together. So why not? People have their own. It's a team at the end of the day. So
Right,
I
right. So
can,
80%, yeah.
yeah. So
80% is planned out, 20% I would say is to
is
creativity and
exactly,
it's
exactly.
collaboration. I think that's exactly because when it's like too has have it's too rigid, it's like, oh my God, you're almost copying the imagery that you have.
Yeah, no, that's, and
Exactly.
especially when I work with a photographer, it's
Yeah.
really important. Like,
Photographer, I mean, yeah.
they have their visions and they want to create a story. I've had to include looks because they're like, listen, no, I want to do pre makeup also. I was like, oh my God, already there are three looks, and now you want to do pre makeup also. So,
Pre-makeup.
because
Right,
they want to create a certain story too. So, I have to accommodate that. And then I have to make sure that
right,
if they're doing pre story, that also has to be styled by me because I know how the image should look. so,
right. So
so
are
then
you
I say,
present on the wedding day? Are you like
that
really
that
present
is a
there? What?
separate charge besides, but like,
Okay.
if
Yeah.
they want, and especially if it's here, like, by the end of it, I mean, I'm like really good friends with my most of my brides, so I would love to travel. um but it depends on if I don't have anything else going on. Otherwise,
Right.
I'm
Makes sense.
virtually basically handling the weddings.
Right. Um, okay, makes sense. Yeah. So let's talk about budget, like, spending on clothes and accessories, might for every day seems like an overspend, for some brides.
Right.
Already, all these outfits are super expensive for
Yeah.
bridal. Does having like a stylist mean that they would like spend more, or spend less in the long run? What are your thoughts on like spending and the budget basic?
So I'll tell you, that is actually honestly a very, very good question, because a lot of people that come like I said, the perception is still, because that's this section is not so in, it's not so evolved, and it everything comes up, like every new thing is coming up day by day. I
Yeah.
feel like in terms of prices, the thing is that when brides are buying their outfits, a lot of times, in fact, I would put that number more at a more than 50%, brides don't end up wearing their outfits again. I for me that is for me that is that's a waste of $5,000.
Yeah.
um, and if you do invest in a bridal stylist and you understand what you're buying, then you make sure that what you are purchasing is also going to be relevant 10 years from now. It also makes sure that you are going to be able to use that outfit in different capacities, whether a lehenga with a different blouse, or that blouse with a different sari, or that dupatta with a different outfit, so on and so forth, that you are being able to use that outfit. Because it's not just about the money. For me, I also feel that Indian handicraft is so amazing, and we come from such a rich culture, and we are also we are very lucky to have hand embroideries so readily available to us, that we, I guess, like we somewhere we forget along the way that it is craft, and it is something that should be passed on. It's not something that should just stay in your closet and oh, I couldn't wear it again because it was too heavy. Well, then maybe that was not your personality. Like, you bought it because you thought it would look nice, but then eventually um, you could not relate to it anymore. Or sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people end up buying very trendy outfits that are really not a classic, and then the style goes out of fashion. So for me, all of these things are really important. That when a bride is investing in that outfit, not only has it does it have to make sense to the occasion, but it also has to make sense for her, and
Mm-hmm.
also has to stay relevant for the next 10 years at least. um, and when
Yeah.
they do, then they, if it actually works like that, and if a bride really is, she's very she's very comfortable with the outfit that she's bought, she ends up repeating the outfit every time. Most of my brides, I've had a bride um who had completely ruined her haldi outfit because it was a South Indian wedding, and they like throw water on it and everything. And she went into the ocean with it. And then she's like, listen, I don't think I mean, it's gone. I loved it, but it's gone. I had I had that
Oh
outfit
my God, that's painful.
I had the whole outfit re-dyed, and now she wears it again. And because it is, and she's like, I never thought I could, like, if I look at those pictures, she's like, I never thought that outfit will live again. But
Wow, that's an amazing
yeah,
story. Yeah.
so I feel
So
like it's
she's wearing it, you're saying now, or she went back into
yeah,
the ocean? Okay.
no, she at that point of time she did, she ruined it, and now she's wearing it again. Now she's kind of careful,
Okay.
because I was like,
I
I
see. So
mean, they're
she's
delicate
not going
fabrics,
back into
don't.
the ocean. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's good. So
Yeah.
aside from going in the ocean, what other mistakes do brides or grooms frequently make when it comes to working with a stylist, or with or without a stylist?
Um, I mean, I guess without I wouldn't know because I wasn't there.
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
but when I guess, like, when I see people's weddings that I haven't been a part of, a lot of times it, colors are a big challenge for people to understand. Um, and they think that they're looking nice in this color, so they end up buying that color, but that color only complements them, and it does not complement anybody else at the wedding, not even their partner. So what ends up happening is that the pictures look bizarre,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a very common mistake that people make. Second of all is, again, choosing outfits that are not fit for their personality, um, and outfits
Mm-hmm.
that they will not be able to wear again.
Got
I
it.
think that's also a very common mistake that people make.
Yeah.
And the third thing is that people, while they're choosing outfits, they do not. They sometimes don't know that they can change designs in terms of, like, how the neckline looks, or how the sleeve length looks, or what is the length of the blouse, or so on and so forth. So what happens is that when they get the outfit, they just get it as is, as like what it looks like on the model, but it actually does not look good on them. And maybe that neckline doesn't suit them, or it's just too much with the jewelry that they're wearing. So that also I
Yeah.
see very often. Um, Another thing that I always see is the choice of accessories. People spend so much money on outfits, but when it comes to
Mm.
and honestly, I don't blame them, because for them to understand the quality of costume jewelry is very difficult because there's so much available.
Yeah.
But they end up spending so much money on outfits, but the jewelry, the quality of the jewelry, like it comes across in pictures that it's not. Um,
Yeah.
it just is not at par with the outfit that they're wearing. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I see
those are
very
some
often.
really good points.
It's
So
I
I
love
think
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's why we want them to come to us and buy fine jewelry, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I see the
that's
jewelry point. I couldn't agree more. Like just the look, the costume jewelry. You're spending so much money on like costume
and
jewelry.
costume
Might as well
jewelry is
get.
not cheap.
Yeah. What was that? It's not cheap. You're saying, yeah,
Yeah.
costume. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
costume
No,
Yeah,
jewelry is not
I
exactly.
yeah, I agree
Exactly.
with like all the things you said about the color, and then like people thinking it looks really good on them, but it really doesn't. Or and also like you the necklines and so on. Like you started our discussion on that, right? And then you were saying how you help people modify those things, and to
yeah,
be honest, I didn't
yeah,
even visualize that people could. I mean, I can see now that you can do it, but there's a lot of things you could change, and have a lot of permutation combinations that you
yeah.
could create. So I'm actually sold on your service by the end of this podcast interview. Although I'm not a buyer at the moment, but I can see there being so much value in what you do and how you
Yeah,
do
Right.
it. So
Yeah.
thank you
We'll do
for
your.
you.
Have you
definitely.
guys had your 10 year renewal?
We actually just
Yes.
had our 15-year anniversary. Yeah. So maybe
Oh
this
wow.
maybe the 16-year anniversary. Maybe we could
Yeah,
do it then.
maybe when you guys touch 20, let's do a vow renewal, and then we can do some interesting outfits and some nice looks for you guys.
I know.
Well, we
This
don't have
is
to
a
wait
great
till
episode.
20.
We honestly, yeah, we honestly just donated all our wedding outfits. This is like
See?
so appropriate. We just donated it to Goodwill. I had no other ways to like use them. They
Yeah,
were 15 years old. I was like,
yeah.
someday I will wear them, but it's been 15 years and I've still not touched them, so they're all
Uh,
gone.
oh
I just
yeah.
had to
I
like empty up.
yeah,
It was painful.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
know. I can imagine, and like it's so much money also, and it's like it also
Yeah.
holds like sentimental value.
Emotional. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So it was
yeah.
hard, but
No, this is
it's
really. I think
gone.
when
It's
you said
gone.
50%, I was like that percent is probably 80-90% of the
yeah,
brides and
yeah,
grooms
yeah.
don't wear
Which
Yeah.
it,
is,
right?
I have
Yeah,
ended up wearing
Yeah.
my wedding lehenga thrice since my wedding. It's been
yeah,
no,
Nice.
yeah, three times, and I don't even have it here in the US. It's in India, but I still
yeah,
every time I go there and I have a wedding, I change my blouses, I style it differently. Sometimes I
yeah.
wear sneakers, sometimes I wear shoes, whatever I want. But I've actually worn that lehenga 4 times. So
That's
now I've been
amazing.
told by my family that no more of my wedding lehenga. I took at people's weddings, so I
So,
guess
so
I.
what are some of your favorite designers, that you could recommend like couples should explore, like for brides and grooms separately? Like, do you have any special designers that you always reach out for?
I so for that, I would say the most important thing is, again, while considering a designer, please don't pick a designer without understanding what you really want.
Mm,
Uh, because again, you're either just fitting into what uh, that frame that they've already created, but it's not necessary that it's not necessary that that is what your sensibility is. And so I do understand that the easiest way to do this without a bridal stylist is like, hey, I want to look like a Sabyasachi bride, or I want to look like a Manish Malhotra bride, or I want to look like an Abhinav Mishra bride. But I guess
mm,
like it's important to understand where your individuality lies and what is it that you like, and then pick a designer that kind of aligns with your sensibility, with the kind of craft that you like. Do you like mirror work? Then go and choose Abhinav Mishra. Do you like do you like a lot of like flower motifs? Then you can pick
mm,
Mishru. Do you like a lot
Yeah.
of sequence work? Pick Arpita Mehta. Do you like Gota work? Pick Nidhi Tholia. Do you like a lot of do you like contemporary stuff, which is a mix of both and chicken curry? Then pick MadSam label. So it depends on what you really want, and understand yourself first, and then pick a designer.
Nice. That's amazing. I love the answers because yeah, it's
Did,
just
did, did,
about yourself first and then the
Yes,
designer. Yeah.
yes.
What was it?
no, I was going to ask, did you send her all the questions before? Because her answers are really good. Maybe you did.
She's I mean, she's living and breathing this, so she.
I guess that's what it is. It's just
No,
Uh,
I didn't send her the questions, although she asked for it. I was not going to send her the questions. So this is candid.
and to wrap up our
Yeah.
conversation, what part of about your work that brings you joy and satisfaction?
I guess that what brings me the most joy is that I'm creating I'm creating something for my clients that they will hold precious for the rest of their lives. I guess like I also felt like that as a designer, and I also feel like that as a stylist. But as a stylist, I see it end to end, so it's like the outfit with all of it end to end. And now it gives me so much joy that they hold on to these pictures or these videos and their outfits, all of that. And it is probably the
Mm,
most memorable day of their life, and I was a part of that. So I guess like that's something that like gives me great joy.
that's precious. Yeah. Thank you. Makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you
Mhm.
for such a rich conversation, Tina. We really enjoyed having you on the podcast, and then we'll be sure to link to your social media and your website and so on, so people
Yes,
can find
please.
you. Okay,
Yes,
great.
please.
Anything else, Gino or Tina?
Go for
No,
it.
I just wanted to thank her again for her time and all the wealth of knowledge and tips that we have now.
Thank you so much for having me, and I guess like just getting the conversation started, because I think, like I said, it's because it's such a new sector, that I guess like people are still stumbling upon what it really means and how it can help them. So I guess like thank you guys for having this conversation and entertaining a bridal stylist.
If you've enjoyed watching this episode and learned something new, please consider subscribing to the Indian Wedding Podcast. You can also sign up for the Indian Wedding Podcast's monthly email newsletter for more exclusive content. To sign up, click on the link in the description below or notes on our website, indianweddingpodcast.com. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Indian Wedding Podcast. For more exclusive time and money-saving tips, head over to sampatjewelers.com/podcast.